Alright, welcome to my video. My name is Eckogen. In this video, we'll go over the Wind skills and build for KFM. So by now, I'm sure you've all seen the new interface and changes to our skills with the introduction of the Secrets of the Stratus patch. So open up your skill window here, and if you click on View Trainable Skills, it only displays skills that you can actually manage. So we'll go through each skill, and we'll start off with Straight Jab. So in Straight Jab, Focus Recovery is the best choice, as it recovers one additional focus upon a critical hit, and critical hit also procs your Cyclone Kick. In Survival, the 5% health isn't going to do much, as your LMB doesn't do very much damage, and the cooldown on your second wind isn't really that useful in a PvE setting. Swift Strike, most of the time you will have it on basic skills. The base damage and defense piercing is half of that, but it does pierce defense and parry skills. So I would say defense piercing is really only needed in PvP, or very high floors of Tower Infinity. Rising Dragon, Resist has the lowest cooldown out of the three, and gives you another iframe if you time it correctly. It no longer causes a knockback status, so it is viable. Stun and Daze are as implied, and they're mainly for CCs and PvP. I would only use Resist in situations where you don't need to CC and if you need the extra iframe. However, most of the time you're probably running on stun. The Hong Moon skill for this is really great because for stun and daze, it pulls your targets all within 8 meters of you. So that's a really good skill for this if you get the Hong Moon skill. Flurry. So both increased damage and immunity gives you 1 resist. The big difference is that for increased damage, the resist is only available within 1 second of using it, whereas immunity, it provides a maximum 1 resist throughout the duration of the skill. So keep in mind that immunity has a 45-second cooldown versus the 30-second cooldown and the increased damage. And of course your daze would be for CCs and PvP. Tremor. So stun is for CCs and PvP. I would not use stun in PvE unless you absolutely need another CC, because you will lose out on a little bit of damage. Threat will be for tanking, of course. So for the most part, you will be using Enhanced Party if you're not tanking, as it will provide a 20% additional damage buff for 10 seconds for your Cyclone Kick, and as well as a 20% increase in critical damage for 10 seconds. Fighting Spirit. Resist is pretty much only for PvP. Enhanced Party for when you're in a group, and then Enhanced Self when you're solo. Counter, so Resist will be your standard 1 second duration block. If you have the Hong Moon skill for it, and if you block the attack, it'll give you a 2 second iframe. Threat will be for when you're tanking. It is optional, as you don't need it as long as you aren't being severely out damaged, provided you have threat and other skills. Attack defense. It's a timed counter, so it counterattacks any attack if you time it correctly, and that will also reset the cooldown for that skill. If you mistime the counter, then there will be a 2 second cooldown. So pretty much Resist is good if you want to play it safe, while Attack Defense is more for offensive play. Flying Slam. So Threat will be for the tank build, and it's a good opening starter. Block Approach and Defense Piercing are similar. They both launch the target into the air, but Defense Piercing does a lot more damage at the cost of having a higher cooldown. So you got 1 minute versus 18 seconds. Smite, it's either increased damage or airborne. I would say go with increased damage for PvE, and then airborne would be useful in certain situations in PvP. So launching your target into the air is good. If, for example, if you're doing 6v6 and you have lots of ranged members on your team, then airborne targets would be very vulnerable to all those range classes. Whereas if, let's say, your team is composed of mostly melee classes, then I would not airborne them. I would probably just go with increased damage. That way you can keep your target grounded and continuously, CC lock them down as you, pretty much beat the shit out of them. Comic Strike. Damage for when you're not tanking. Days for PvP and CCs. But I would definitely avoid running days for PvE, as you know, Comic Strike is a good source of damage. Threat for tanking. So most of your threat generation will come from this skill. Definitely recommend getting Volume 2 for this, as it allows you to instantly cast another Comic Strike, and you get the focus cost back if it crits. So the Volume 2 will apply for threat and damage. Chain Mace. So both stun and AoE will stun the target for 2 seconds. The difference is that AoE has a wider hit area, so it's useful against classes like assassins. Otherwise, outside of PvP, you would use combo. Searing Palm, typically you would use Enhanced Party for PvE, and then Stun for PvP. Enhanced Party will work out in 6v6, as it's easy to proc when you're doing your Q and E. So that's pretty much my general build that I use for PvE. And then here's my PvP build. So your course you'll have to modify it depending on what class you're against. So for example, you know, in Swift Strike, you would use Defense Piercing when you're against Destroyers or Blade Dancers. For Focus Fighting Spirit, usually you should run Resist when you're against Force Masters. And then in your triple kick here, I would probably run AoE when you're against classes like Assassins. And then this is what my tank build looks like. So notice for Tremor, you got your threat, counters and threat, and comic strikes and threat. If you can do a lot of damage, then you can probably put your Tremor on Enhanced Party and keep your counter on Resist, and then your comic strike will be the only source of threat. So that's only if you know your party members aren't doing a ridiculous amount of damage and you can hold it. Otherwise, I would at least say have your V in threat, comic strike in threat, and then you keep your counter here. Or if you're having difficulty, then you would put all three on counter. So anyway, that's my general build for each situation for PvP, PvE, and tanking. So in my next video, I'll be going over the Soul and Mystic badges and how that affects your rotation. So thank you for watching. Hope that helped.